The guards dragged two women into the wine cellar beneath the imperial palace. It was winter in the year 655, Chang'an, capital of Tang Dynasty China. The women had been empresses and consorts just days before. Now they were prisoners who had not eaten in a week, their hair matted, their silk robes replaced with rough prisoner garments. What happened next was recorded by court historians who were required to document everything, even events the dynasty would later try to suppress. The executioners forced both women to their knees. They produced cleavers that had been specifically forged for this purpose. Without ceremony, without ritual, without allowing either woman to speak, they severed Empress Wang's hands at the wrists, then her feet at the ankles, then Consort Xiao's hands, then her feet. The women were still alive. They were meant to be alive. That was the point. The executioners lifted their bleeding bodies and lowered them into two massive wine jars, ceramic vessels normally used to ferment alcohol. The jars were just large enough to contain a human torso with no limbs. The women's heads protruded from the openings, nothing else. Then the executioners sealed the jars with wax, leaving only the heads exposed. A servant was dispatched to inform the new empress that her orders had been carried out. The servant was told to use a specific phrase when delivering the news. The phrase was "renji," human pigs. The new empress who ordered this punishment was 27 years old. 14 years earlier, she had entered this same palace as a fifth-rank concubine, the lowest rank that still had access to the emperor's bed. She was not royal. She was not noble. She was the daughter of a timber merchant. Her name was Wu Zhao. Within 50 years, she would become the only woman in 4,000 years of Chinese history to rule as emperor in her own name. She would kill her own sister, her own niece, her own granddaughter, two of her own sons, dozens of ministers, and thousands of suspected enemies. She would create a secret police force that terrorized the empire. She would rewrite religious texts to justify female rule. She would move the capital of China to escape the ghosts she claimed were haunting her. And it all began with what she did to the two women in those wine jars. This is the story of Wu Zetian, the human pig punishment, and the 50-year reign of terror that followed. It contains more documented murders, betrayals, and acts of cruelty than any other imperial biography in Chinese history. The court historians who recorded it were required to tell the truth. Many of them died for what they wrote. If you are drawn to real history, the kind that reveals what human beings are capable of when they hold absolute power, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Comment below telling me where in the world you are watching from. What you are about to hear has been verified by multiple independent sources, recorded by eyewitnesses, and preserved in documents that have survived for over 1,300 years. This is not legend. This is the documented record of the most ruthless woman who ever lived. Let us begin with how a timber merchant's daughter entered the imperial palace and started her climb over the bodies of everyone who stood in her way. Wu Zhao was born in 624 in the city of Wenshui, Shanxi province. Her father, Wu Shihuo, was a timber merchant who had made a critical decision years before her birth. He had financially supported Li Yuan's rebellion against the Sui dynasty. That decision changed everything for the Wu family. When Li Yuan succeeded and founded the Tang dynasty as Emperor Gaozu, he remembered the merchants who had funded his war. Wu Shihuo was elevated from timber merchant to government minister. The Wu family went from wealthy commoners to minor aristocracy in a single generation. But there was a problem. Wu Shihuo had sons from his first wife, and when he died in 635, those sons inherited everything. Wu Zhao's mother, Lady Yang, was the second wife. She and her daughters were pushed out of the family home by the stepbrothers, forced to survive on a small allowance. Wu Zhao was 11 years old. She would never forget this humiliation. She would never forgive her half-brothers for it. Decades later, when she held absolute power, she would have one brother exiled to a remote jungle where he died of disease. She would have another brother's son executed for a minor offense. The Wu family's male line would be systematically destroyed. But that revenge was far in the future. In 635, Wu Jiao was simply a girl from a once prominent family that had fallen on hard times. She had one asset. She was extraordinarily beautiful. Court records describe her as having a face like a full moon, eyes that commanded attention, and a presence that made people stop speaking when she entered a room. In 637, Emperor Taizong issued a call for beautiful young women to join his imperial harem. Wu Jiao's mother saw an opportunity. She submitted her daughter's name. Wu Zhao was 14 years old when she entered the Forbidden City. Emperor Taizong was one of the greatest rulers in Chinese history. He had helped his father seize the throne and then forced his father to abdicate in his favor. He had killed 2 of his own brothers to secure his position. He was brilliant, ruthless, and surrounded by talented advisors who helped him build what historians call the Golden Age of the Tang Dynasty. He was also 40 years old when 14-year-old Wu Jiao arrived in his palace. The imperial harem operated on a strict hierarchy. At the top was the empress, who managed the inner palace and was mother to the heir. Below her were 4 consorts of the first rank. Below them were 9 consorts of the second rank. Below them were 27 concubines of the third rank. Below them were 81 concubines of the fourth rank. Wu Jiao entered at the 5th rank, Karen, a rank so low it barely counted. There were hundreds of women at this level, women whose primary function was to be available if the emperor ever wanted variety. Most women at this rank never slept with the emperor at all. They spent their lives in the inner palace, aging in obscurity, waiting for a summons that never came. Wu Jiao refused to accept this fate. The historical record shows that she attracted Taizong's attention through intelligence rather than seduction. She was literate, educated, capable of discussing politics and history. Taizong found her interesting. He gave her the nickname Mei Niang, meaning beautiful lady. He kept her close. But he did not favor her romantically. In 12 years as his concubine, Wu Jiao never bore Taizong a child. This suggests he rarely or never called her to his bed. He valued her as a companion, not as a lover. This was a problem. In the imperial system, a concubine's power came from her children. A concubine who bore a son might see that son become emperor. She would then become Empress Dowager, one of the most powerful positions in the empire. A concubine with no children had no future. Wu Jiao was running out of time. And then something happened that changed everything. In 648, Taizong fell ill. He was 50 years old and had spent decades in military campaigns. His body was failing. The imperial doctors could not cure him. Wu Jiao was assigned to attend him during his illness. She spent months at the dying emperor's bedside, watching, listening, learning. She observed which ministers had power and which were merely decorative. She memorized the fault lines of court politics. She also encountered Crown Prince Liji, Taizong's 9th son, who visited his father regularly. Liji was 21 years old. He was gentle, indecisive, and completely unlike his father. Historians describe him as emotionally fragile, prone to headaches, and dominated by stronger personalities around him. He was also immediately infatuated with his father's concubine. The historical record is unclear on exactly what happened between Wu Jiao and Liji while Emperor Taizong lay dying in the next room. What is clear is that by the time Taizong died in 649, Wu Jiao and Liji had formed a connection that would reshape Chinese history. But first, Wu Jiao had to survive what came next. When an emperor died, his childless concubines were required to become Buddhist nuns. They would have their heads shaved, move to the Ganye temple, and spend the rest of their lives praying for the dead emperor's soul. They were forbidden from ever marrying. They were expected to fade into religious obscurity. Wu Zhao was 25 years old when she entered the Ganye temple. She had spent 12 years in the palace and had nothing to show for it. No children, no power, no future. Or so everyone thought. Li Ji became Emperor Gaozong in 649. He was immediately consumed by the demands of ruling a vast empire. His official empress was a woman named Wang, from a powerful aristocratic family. His favorite consort was a woman named Xiao, called the Pure Consort, who had already borne him a son. Empress Wang had a problem. She had not produced an heir. In the imperial system, this was potentially fatal. If Consort Xiao's son was named Crown Prince, Empress Wang would lose her position, her influence, possibly her life. Empress Wang needed an ally, someone who could distract the emperor from Consort Xiao, someone who could divide his attention and prevent any single rival from becoming too powerful. She thought of the former concubine who had been sent to the temple, the one the emperor had obviously been attracted to, the one who was beautiful, intelligent, and currently powerless. Empress Wang made the worst decision of her life. She arranged for Emperor Gaozong to visit the Ganye temple on the anniversary of his father's death. She ensured that Wu Zhao would be present. She expected the emperor to take Wu Zhao as a minor concubine, a distraction that Empress Wang could control. What happened instead was that Emperor Gaozong fell completely, obsessively in love. Within weeks, Wu Zhao was back in the palace. Within months, she was pregnant. Within 2 years, she had borne the emperor 2 sons. Empress Wang had invited a tiger into her home. The tiger was now circling. By 653, the palace had 3 major factions. Empress Wang led the first faction. She had the support of the old aristocratic families who had helped found the Tang dynasty. Her uncle was the chancellor. Her family had served the throne for generations. She was legitimate, proper, exactly what an empress should be. But she had no children. Consort Xiao led the second faction. She was beautiful, favored by the emperor, and had borne him a son named Li Suji. If that son